Okay. Hi, my name is Brenda Yarlagata, and I'm representing the University of Michigan Sustainability Without Borders. Our topic is biomass gasification for macapads production in Uganda. The agenda for today's presentation is as follows. First, I'll give a background as to our stakeholders in Uganda and the issue that we're facing. I'll talk about our problem statement for this project, the current mode of production that this company is using in Uganda. I'll talk about our wicked solution, including the circular system, talk about what is biomass gasification, and discuss an initial prototype we've started building. I'll talk about the feasibility of implementing such a system and the benefits it can bring to both the company and the community. And I'll talk about future applications with this work and wrap up with a summary. So a current problem in Uganda is that menstruation means the end of education for many girls. And there's currently a lack of adequate resources in menstrual management, which means many women resort to banana leaves or strips of cloth rather than sanitary pads. And this leads to a loss of health and hygiene and causes them to lose out on education and lose out on their autonomy. So out of this problem, the company Technology for Tomorrow was created by Dr. Moses Kiza Musazi, who we have been working with throughout this process to develop our solution. His company creates sanitary pads made out of locally grown papyrus and paper. And this company is already very committed to sustainable design, applying appropriate technologies, and keeping job growth within the community, as we'll see later on. So our goal for this project was to address the heat and electricity needs of the production facilities through a systems design incorporating biomass gasification of the papyrus waste materials. And we aim to answer the following questions. Is it possible to use the discarded material of papyrus husk as a feedstock for biomass gasification? How much heat or electricity output can we generate given this input? And what benefits to T4T and the community will result from this system? So first, I'm going to go over the current mode of production as it is in Uganda. As you can see, it's very heavily dependent on human labor, which is an ideal that T4T is really committed to, and we are also committed to maintaining this model. So we see the steps where we cut the papyrus, it's dried, mixed with water and paper to get the pulp, laid out in the sun to dry the sheets, and then cut, sterilized, and packaged. So in particular, in these three steps, which are drying and sterilizing the pads, there is a heavy reliance on the sun for either heat energy to dry the pads or solar energy as electricity to sterilize the pads. And so this becomes a problem in the rainy season because the production comes to a halt, and this also hinders employee retention in the company. So we want to figure out something to address this issue. So here is the current mode of production. So what's happening right now is the papyrus is separated into the pith, which is used to make the pads, and then the husk, which is discarded as a waste material. And then the pads are currently dried using heat energy from the sun and electricity, which is also from the solar energy. And so our circular system improves upon this by taking the husk material, which was previously discarded, and now gasifying it into useful heat energy, which we can apply to dry the pads, or further generate electricity, which can be used to sterilize the pads. And additionally, if we can generate excess electricity, this can also be sold to the grid and be sold to the community as well. So what exactly is biomass gasification? It's essentially a thermal energy conversion process, which takes a feedstock such as wood or foliage, or in our case, the waste papyrus husk, and converts it into useful energy in the form of heat or further into electricity. So essentially what happens is you feed in the biomass through the top of the drum, it rests on the grate, and then it goes through these 6 stages of biomass from drying all the way to cooling and filtration. And then the gas is exited through the outflow port and can be filtered and used as syngas directly or generated into electricity. So here is an initial rudimentary prototype we've been working on. It was based on the guidelines given by the FEMA agency, and it's something that we can scale up according to the needs of each T4T facility and according to each individual need. So we think such a gas-fired design is definitely very feasible. The startup cost of it is very low. Our initial prototype was less than $200 in total materials, and it was made with readily available materials. That 55-gallon drum is a very commonly available material. Additionally, the papyrus husk that we will be using in Uganda grows abundantly. It just grows like grass in Uganda. And then this design is very easy to construct, maintain, and take down. So this is really important as the community members will be working with this gas fire and operating it. So we want to make sure it's very user-friendly. And we've seen similar examples of gasifiers being implemented around the world and even utilizing papyrus. So we definitely think that this has an application in our system. From an energy standpoint, we look at the current energy use for drying the pads, which is 970 kilowatt hours. And this is the direct energy that is hitting the pads, the direct solar energy, which we anticipate is a lot larger than what we actually need to dry the pads. But even if we were to take this as a maximum number, we've laid out various sized gasifiers operating at 8 hours a day, and we can see how much energy we'll generate and how much mass is needed to power each of these gasifiers. So for the 970 kilowatt gasifier, we'll need kilowatt hour energy, we will need a 120 kilowatt gasifier and about 300 kilograms per day. So currently, each shipment of papyrus is about 800 kilograms with opportunities to get more. As I said, the papyrus is very abundant in Uganda. So with the remaining 500 in one shipment, we could get 15,000 kilowatt hours or 1,500 kilowatt hours of heat energy or 390 kilowatt hours of electric energy. So going back to our flowchart, we see that the benefits to this system are immense. First of all, we're utilizing a waste product that would have otherwise been discarded. And this will allow us to increase the production in the MACAPAD facilities and allow them to generate more revenue. It will also provide a source for more jobs to be generated. We anticipate about 10 to 15 jobs directly at each facility to operate the gasifier, as well as 5 to 10 additional jobs to transport the biomass and other tasks. Other benefits are if we can generate excess electricity, this can also be sold to the grid, further increasing revenue for T4T and also bolstering the local economy. So future work includes scaling up to sell excess electricity, and this is really dependent on T4T and their needs. And also the gasification of other non-traditional materials such as corn cobs or sugarcane husk, and this could be applied in areas around the world where those crop residues are in excess. So if there's a sugarcane farm, maybe there would be some husks available there, and it could be implemented in such a location. So to summarize, T4T needs a more reliable heat and electricity source for the MACAPAD's production. Our solution is that heat can be generated by gasifying this abundant papyrus husk and applied to dry the pads, while the excess electricity, electricity can be used to sterilize the pads, and excess can be sold to the grid. The benefits are that we utilize a waste product, we increase production and revenue for T4T, we help support menstrual management in Uganda, we generate more jobs at T4T for the community members, and we have the potential to provide electricity to the community. So thank you very much.
Judges, take it away.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. It was really interesting. And one question that I had that I thought it would be helpful for us to understand is, are there any safety considerations with this system both burning the material, but also then the production of the gas, and how is that gas stored? I'm assuming it's a flammable gas. So how does your design take into consideration any safety issues related to the storage of that, in advance of when it becomes, burned for energy production directly?
So actually, we're anticipating that the gas that's generated and filtered will immediately be applied to the pads, so it's not going to be stored, essentially. It's just going to be kind of like a hairdryer, just applied directly to the pads right away. And while there are some emissions, these are generally a lot cleaner than your typical car emissions and stuff like that. So because we're just burning biomass, there's no unsafe materials with that. We anticipate, obviously, people should wear a mask and not breathe directly into it, but it should be safe for just general use by the trained employees. And we've also worked with the gas that we've generated. It's not the most perfect gas yet, but and I think it should be fine, but it's not going to be stored anywhere.
Okay,
so,
great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask, just when you brought up the fact that the women, as soon as they experience menstruation, are they just taken out of the education system? Is this a cultural thing that happens?
Yeah, I'd say definitely a cultural issue. It's kind of a stigma. It's seen as a stigma in many Ugandan societies where if you are on your period or menstruating at all, you should not be around other people because they consider it unhygienic or other issues, so they just take them out of school. And then that compounded with the lack of adequate actual resources for sanitary pads makes it even more of a health issue.
Brenda, I thought the presentation was excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I like how you've clarified some of the points that were on your solution board in these stages so far, including the point about the electricity generation, the energy generation. And so you say that you need 307 kilograms of papyrus in order to power the gasifier to the same extent that current production demands. And you said that the papyrus was easily accessible, mm-hmm. but how much work would it take to gather in those 307 kilograms? Who would be doing it, and why would they be doing it? What's the incentive for them?
Sure. So as seen from T4T's existing model, they are very committed to more job growth within the community, and they'll keep tasks demechanized in order to provide more job opportunities for community members and really foster that sense of empowerment for the community members. So the jobs of accumulating the papyrus, cutting it, and then transporting it would all be done by community members, and this provides additional more jobs for them, more opportunities for longer periods of employment, more steady employment. And so I think that is definitely the biggest incentive for them to be involved in this. And then in terms of how much work, actually T4T is looking into buying a plot of land directly next to the facilities so that they can grow the papyrus right there and have it be very streamlined together. So that also will cut down on transportation costs, so it's really just focused on the gathering of the papyrus and bringing it to the facility and then utilizing it in the gasifier. Does that answer the
Yeah, so the people who'd be collecting in the leaves are paid to do this?
Yeah.
And they're paid out of the proceeds of the sales of the macapads?
Yeah, well, they're just paid employees of the macapads production facility. Yeah.
Question for you. It wasn't clear to me how much papyrus does it take to, how do I say this? Well, let's start first with, what is the percentage of waste of papyrus to make a macapad? So there's a portion of the pith that goes to the macapad, mm-hmm. and then there's the husk. What portion by weight is the husk?
I think it is about 70% pith and 30% husk is the number that we got from Moses.
Great. And it wasn't clear to me how much by mass of the husk does it take to power your gasifier to generate a kilogram or to generate a volume of maca pads? Because I'm wondering in my head, is it possible that you're going to run out of supply of husks to power your gasifier, and then you're into another wicked problem, right?
So we did the calculations based on just the mass of the total amount you need to power a gasifier, and we took like the papyrus reed as a whole. So obviously there will be more mass will be needed if it's like just the husk, but we think that as far as what Moses has told us, there will be an abundance of papyrus, so we can even gasify the whole reed itself, and they already have like a lot of husks stored up that we can first utilize to gasify that. So the calculations were done on taking into account the whole reed, but we don't think there will be a problem since the papyrus is so abundant and they already have a lot of it available to be gasified.
Have you guys spoken with any biologists or ecologists as to what the impacts are to the farming of papyrus across the region? So if you have to burn more husks effectively to run your gasifier, what's the impact on the ecosystem as a result of that?
We've talked as far as our conversations with Moses, he's said that right now papyrus is just treated as a weed. It's not, in terms of like the ecosystem, people aren't really valuing it at all. So I think it's using a product using a plant that people aren't really like protecting in any other way. And then we know that it grows back within 6 months, so the like retention rate is pretty quick. So I think it should be okay, especially if they're getting another plot of land just for harvesting this biomass. I think they'll be okay with that. But we'll definitely take into consideration if there are any like habitats in that area. We'll definitely like keep those concerns very present.
Have you visited the location? Have you gone to Uganda?
I personally have not visited.
Okay.
Other SWB team members have gone, and they're the ones who provided us with the pictures, and so our university has a very strong partnership with T4T and with Moses, and we're hoping that we can go to Uganda soon and discuss this.
Thank you, Brenda.
Brenda, what would be the idealized situation for sanitary pads in Uganda?
What would be the ideal situation?
Yeah, for access to and so on.
I think MacaPads as a company is definitely looking to expand their access, and that's like more of a marketing concern that they're going forward with. I haven't looked too much into that aspect of it, but I think they're already partnering with UNHCR and other local Ugandan markets to bring these pads more to the local women, and so just expanding that access would be definitely helpful.
And should sanitary pads be imported en masse from the West or wherever, what then for your technology?
I'm sorry.
Should the sanitary pads be imported en masse and therefore compete with maca pads? What would be the application of your technology at that point?
If they're imported to like other countries, like the U.S. or something?
If sanitary pads are imported from out with Uganda into Uganda and then therefore competes with maca pads, therefore nullifying perhaps the need for your gasifiers,
I think,
what would you do next?
Yeah, I think that actually has been a concern we looked at earlier, and the reason why people choose MacaPads over these other competitor brands is that MacaPads are actually more absorbent than like the standard commercially available Western brands, and so they are actually doing better in Uganda than these other companies. And definitely a sense of like keeping things local is also very important, and pushing that message towards like self-sustaining their own economy.
Okay.
Great.
Just to
Thank you,
clarify-
judges. And let's hear it one more time for University of Michigan Sustainability Without Borders. Nice job.